Goloka Dham-Germany. Adama Kichuna Bachida Jachiya Dileka Kola Kahe Premananda Emona Goranga Vidoya Tariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Kaha Goranga Namare Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Jai Janna Goranga Bhaje Se Hoy Amar Kanare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Yasyaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Vidana Parama Pumarta Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madhavirapi Gopala Shri Kriyat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pidva Rishayustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathabda Brajabala Pahima Vancha Kopaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyascha Patitanam Vaishnaveyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasavi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has described in Adi Lila chapter 10. Shri Chaitanya Padamboja Madhu Pebhyo Manomo Namaha Katanchadashrayad Yesham Swapi Tad Gandhabhag Bhavet. Let me repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto all of you. You are be like devotees. You're always tasting the honey of the lotus feet of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If even a doggish non-devotee like myself somehow takes shelter of devotees like all of you, then somehow I'll be able to enjoy the aroma of the lotus flowers, Krishna's lotus feet. So yesterday we spoke something about the Bakasura-vadha Leela. We'd like to continue with that today, with a few other related discussions. Yesterday we finished by describing Mamata Adike Krishna Alingana Koila Ananda Hridaye Vatsalana Raje Aila. That after Krishna killed Bakasura, all the boys in great ecstasy and love, they one at a time embraced Krishna. And then Ananda Hridaye, and with very happy hearts, Vatsalana Raje Aila, they took their calves and they went back to Braj. Jiva Goswami in Gopal Champu, he says that before they went home though, they first went to the nearby lake and they took bath. Maybe because it had been a very exciting day for them, or perhaps they were concerned that Krishna might have been a little contaminated coming from the mouth of Bakasura, which is yesterday we described from another Vrindavan Champu. That amazingly, when Krishna came out, there was no saliva, there was nothing nasty on him whatsoever. But the boys still, they went to the bath, the lake first, and they took a bath, and then taking their calves, they departed for their homes. And what happened after that? Nanda Kishore Goswami in Vrindavan Lilamrita sings, Nija nija ghare Bakasura-vadha tata kahite lagila sishu gana jata tata bolo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Nija ghare Bakasura-vadha tata. Then later on, in each one of their own homes, those boys, they began to speak what had happened that day and how Krishna killed Bakasura. Kaite lagila sishugana yetta tata. Again and again, over and over, they described that pastime. It's described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and Anjalila Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, Shruyatam Shruyatam Nityam, Giyatam Giyatam Mura, Chintatam Chinchitam Bhaktas Chaitanya Charitamritam. Very wonderful verse. Shruyatam Shruyatam Nityam. Always, always listen, listen, listen. If you're a sadhak, you should listen. If you're a bhav bhakta, you should listen. If you're a premi bhakta, you should listen. If you've entered into Krishna Leela, you'll listen. Everyone should listen to Gaura Leela and Krishna Leela. Shruyatam Shruyatam Nityam, Giyatam Giyatam Muda. And then what do you do after you've heard it? Giyatam Giyatam. Again and again you go and you speak it. As we said yesterday, my Guru Maharaj called this the kirtan of the disciple. And he said that kirtan is another name for shravan, for hearing. We're not a qualified speaker, but it's such a wonderful process that Gurudev comes and speaks, and then he says, now you repeat that. And by repeating that, we're getting a chance to hear. So Giyatam Giyatam Muda, but not just repeating in a mechanical way. Kaviraj Goswami tacks on the word muda, not mudha, meaning a fool. But muda means with great happiness. Not just in a mechanical way, but with some feeling. We should do that. Mudhas are also people a little happy. They say that there's only two happy people in this world. Fools and devotees. Giyatam Giyatam Muda. Then what do you do after that? Chinchitam Chinchitam Bhaktas. First you hear, again and again. Shruyatam Shruyatam Nityam. You always hear. You might not always speak, but you should always hear. Then after hearing, you speak. First you should hear. Giyatam Giyatam Muda. Then what happens after that is a natural flow. Chinchitam Chinchitam Bhaktas. It automatically comes to your mind. You can't stop it. Even if you want to stop it. Sometimes the gopis are complaining. We want you to leave our mind, Krishna. But you won't leave our mind. We can't stop thinking about you. In the 82nd chapter of the 10th canto, when, I think it's 82nd, maybe 85th, when the gopis meet with Krishna in Kurukshetra, 82nd. The gopis only have one thing they say to Krishna. Oshtate nalinanava padara vindam Yogeshwarai ridhi chinjamagara bodhai Sangsara kupa patitotaranava Geham jusam api manashyudiyak sadanaha. One commentary we read said that the reason why only one thing, the gopis, they haven't seen Krishna in so many years, and they only have one thing to say to him. Actually, the gopis said many things. But Sukadeva Goswami was feeling so much pain, he couldn't tolerate writing it all. So in that verse, interesting verse, the gopis, They address Krishna. Oh, excuse us, now you've become God. Now you're a big man, you're living in Mathura, and everybody worships you. Yogeshwarai, Hridi Vichintamagada Bodhai. And we know you sent all these messages with that fellow, what's his name, Uddhava, telling us that we should be yogis. And then they said that Samsara Kupa Patito Taranavalam. We can't be yogis. We're housewives. We're fallen in the deep, dark well of household life. In a place, maybe you've heard the name before, Krishna? It's called Vrindavan. Do you remember that place sometimes? Geham Jusamapi Manashudiyat Sadhana. We can't be yogis because yogis are peaceful. And we're not peaceful because we can't stop thinking about you. And it makes us always disturbed. So how can we practice yoga? So, Chinchitam Bhaktas, Shriyatam Nityam Giyatam Mura, Chinchitam Bhaktas. First we hear, then we speak, and then automatically it comes to our mind. In the beginning is Vaidhi Bhakti, and then Chinchitam Bhaktas means that we've come to the point of Bhav Bhakti. It's automatic. We have some attraction for Krishna. Chinchitam Bhaktas, you've become a real devotee then. Chinchitam Bhaktas, Chaitanya Charitamritam. And then you can really relish the Chaitanya Charitam Amrit, the nectarian life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, which indicates indirectly Prem Bhakti. So these things occur one after another by hearing Krishna Katha. Krishna Katha is such a wonderful thing that everyone wants to speak that. In the 53rd verse, in the 11th chapter, in the 10th canto, it describes Muktam Bakasya Rupalabhya Balaka Ramadaya Pranamidindriyo Ganam Stanagatam Tam Pariyabhya Nibritam Praniyavat Sambrajam Etya Tajjagu. Just as the senses are pacified, when the consciousness and the life airs return, so when Krishna was freed from danger, all the boys, including Balaram, felt that their life had been restored, and they all embraced Krishna. And then they collected their calves, and they returned to Braj Bhumi, where they all declared the incident very loudly. Krishna Balarama Done Swadriha Aila Deki Nanda Adi Ati Ananda Aila. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Balarama Done Swadrihe Aila Deki Nanda Adi Ati Ananda Aila. When they saw Krishna and Balaram and all the other boys return home, Deki Nanda Adi, Nanda Maharaj and the others, Ati Ananda Paila, they became so very, very ecstatic and they began to cry. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Nanda Maharaj has built a tower on top of his home. And every day they were waiting in that tower, looking for when Krishna would return home. Looking for him at a distance. Yashoda Rohini Done Ati Snehamane Siddha Asi Pulakira Krishna Balaram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ati Snehamane, with so much love and affection, Mother Yashoda and Rohini, they took Krishna and Balaram on their laps and they began to embrace them. Chunan Koriya Dunhe Dunhara Bodhane Grihe Lana Nana Drabya Karana Bodhane. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Over and over again they kept kissing their sons, Your mother does like that when you go home? And then most important for mothers, when their son comes home, they fed them. It's very important. They gave them so many different types. Karana bhojani. It says that Grihilana nana drabya karana bhojani. They gave them so many different types of foodstuffs. And they insisted you have. They said, Mom, we just ate. No, you've been gone so long. You must be starving. And Krishna can't refuse. Gopa gopi gana mukhe samana suniya Nandalai aila adi shita haira. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Gopa gopi gana mukhe samana suniya. When they heard the news, there's a newspaper in Korea called the Samvad. Means news, When they heard the Samvad, all the gopis and gopas, they came to Nanda Maharaja's house with great curiosity. They wanted to hear what happened today with Krishna. Trishita noyane kori Krishna darasan kohite lahila kata sabha bhogagan. Kishore Goswami says that Trishita Noyane, their eyes of the cowherd people, their eyes were very thirsty. We never had thirsty eyes. We sometimes have a thirsty throat or a thirsty mouth. But the Brijbasis, they have thirsty eyes. Trishita Noyana Kori Krishna Darshan. They simply wanted to see Krishna. Sometimes we speak about what is darshan. And we say that darshan means that we don't see, but the Lord sees us. That's real darshan. I sometimes feel a little annoyed when I see someone posting pictures, and that here's today's darshan. But it's not darshan. Darshan means you come before the Lord and you report. Not that I look, yeah, the Pujari did a good job today with Radha Madhav Mohan. I approve. That's not darshan. You see sometimes the Hindus, they come and they do like this. That's darshan. Darshan means I'm reporting before you, now you can chastise me. Not that you come to work and you check out your boss. Yeah, you're looking good now. All right, I appreciate it. You report to work. Here I am. What should I do? And what to speak when we come before Krishna. But in this case, Nanda Kishore Goswami, he's correct. Trishita Noyane Kori Krishna Darshan. They were having darshan. They were seeing. Because Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santas Sadaivarida Vilokayanti. They have, the Brijbasis, they have real eyes. They can see Krishna with the eye of love. In fact, our Guru Maharaj used to say that when Krishna wants to appreciate his own beauty, what does he do? If we want to appreciate our own beauty, we look at a mirror. I heard someone once say that hell means that place where there's all kinds of beautiful women, but there's no mirror. Because, but for ladies it's a very important thing. But Krishna, what kind of mirror can he look in if he wants to see his own beauty? What's going to reflect Krishna's beauty? Nothing can reflect Krishna's beauty. No mundane mirror. It's just a one-dimensional image. But my Guru Maharaj used to say that the, what's the phrase? Can you hear it? Yeah, the Sat Prema Vidoya Darpana. The heart, the mirror-like heart of those pure devotees who have real love, they can see Krishna. Krishna appears there. Sachinanda Maharaj was telling us a few years ago, I remember hearing, why Krishna is black. A long discussion. But one reason that he gave is that because Krishna is residing, he's living in the eyes of the gopis. And the gopis are always putting some mascara, some kajal around their face. Krishna is black. Because that's where Krishna lives. We can appreciate this really. Yeah. If someone's an artist has no meaning without someone who can appreciate the art. Isn't it? And therefore there must be some connoisseur. Someone can make millions of paintings, but there's no one who can appreciate the genius of that artist. Then what's the value of it? And therefore we say in English that beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. Satchidananda Maharaj Ki. Maharaj had a little long life. Just saying a good name. So beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, and in particular the eye of the heart. Sat prema, prema hridaya dharpana. And that pure love of the Brijbasis, Krishna can see himself. And therefore the Brijbasis, when they came there, Trishita Nayane, with very thirsty eyes, Kori Krishna Darshan, they could really see Krishna. Badai Ascharja Balakera Midasam means to walk away, to leave. He left the mouth of death. Jai Jai Aishe Sishimsa Kori Bhai Bhaya Deka Iya Tunga Deya Mosamare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama They said that JJ, I say Sishu Himsakoi. There's all kinds of terrible people who keep coming to our peaceful land of Braj, and they're trying to harm this very wonderful child. When we see this, it brings us so much fear and so much unhappiness. What do you think of that? Do you know in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami describes what Vishwanath says are secondary, a verse he describes primary and secondary, symptoms of hearing Bhagavatam. The secondary ones are Shoka, Moha, Vayapaha. Fear, lamentation, and illusion will go away. So here we're reading about how the residents of Vrindavan, they have this fear, lamentation, and they're also an illusion sometimes. So what do you think? Should we maybe go and preach to them? No, you shouldn't do like that. No? Like Uddhava, once he came to Braj and he started preaching to Nanda and Yashoda, don't cry, don't you know? Your Gopal is Bhagavan, he's God. You have no reason to cry. And they said, what are you saying? What kind of comment is that? That's crazy. In another book we were working on recently called Govinda Mangal, when Dukhi Shamdas, the author, he's a disciple of Shyamananda Prabhu, when he speaks about the Krishna swallowing the forest fire, he says that the boys began calling out to Krishna in fear. Oh, please help us, please protect us. What's their problem? You don't have faith in Krishna? Why are they doing like that? And then he explains it, the boys tell him, actually we don't care. We're not worried about the fire. We can be burned alive, no problem. But there's something worse than that. We're afraid of being separated from you. And another reason is given by Jiva Goswami in his elaboration on Toshini. He says that, in effect, they were preaching to Krishna. Krishna, look, you should save us. We're your own friends and close persons here in Braj. If you don't save us, people will criticize you. And we can't tolerate that. So for no other reason, you should save us, because otherwise you'll be criticized. And that'll bring so much pain to our heart. So the Brijbasis, they were feeling this fear and unhappiness. Maya Murti Dhari Chahe Krishna Ramanite Paradrohi Sabanashta Hoya Achirate Krishna Ramarite. So many of these big magicians, they came to Braj, Maya Murti Dhari, and they assumed different illusory forms, like Putana, Chanavarta, Shakatasura. And they came to kill Krishna. But instead, Paradrohi Sabanashtoya Achariti, all of them were killed. Jalanta Anali Jaina Patanga Asiya, just like insects that enter into a fire. They were all immediately killed. Brahmavid Gargamuni Jekataka Hila Ati Jay Ascharja Sevi Sakala Dekila. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare. They said, oh, Gargamuni, he's Brahmavid. He knows Brahman. He's a very learned, realized person. Jekataka Hila. You remember what he told us about Krishna? All those Ati Jay Ascharja say Shakala Dekila. Thank you. All those astonishing things that he said about Krishna, they're all coming true. I was wondering where this went. Matananda Ari Jata Gopagam Rama Krishna Kadamrita Kori Ashadam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Matananda Ari Jata Gopagam. This way, Nanda Maharaj and all the other residents of Vrindavan, Rama Krishna Katamrita Kori Aswadan. They enjoyed this Katamrit, this nectarian topics about Krishna and Balaram, but they didn't just listen to it, they drank it. They drank it through the holes in their ears. And what happened after that? Ananda Sagare Ati Nibhavna Hoya Sansara Vedana Mata Kichuna Janai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Then a very dangerous thing happened. They didn't warn you this when you first came to the Sunday feast. But they all drowned and they died in the ocean of happiness, hearing that Krishna Katha, very dangerous Katha. Samsara Vedanamatra Kichuna Janayi. And in that way they forgot all the problems, all the troubles of this world. Because if we want to do kirtan, if we want to have Krishna Katha, just for a few minutes, we should forget about all those things. Many times when we do our yatras in Puri, we ask the devotees to make a basket and leave all their problems in the basket before we stop. And we promise them, don't worry, the problems will still be there when you finish. They're really attached to your problem. But you don't have to think about it while you're here. You can just come and hear and chant about Krishna. So Nanda Kishore Goswami concludes this section of his book. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pada Padma Kori Ash Vrindavan Lilamrit Kohi Nanda Kishore Das. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hankering for the lotus feet of Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, Nanda Kishore Das tells this Vrindavan Lilamrita. So, in Nanda Vrindavan Champu Kavi Karnapur, he says that after bathing and feeding Krishna, giving him his evening meal, Mother Yashoda, she came to Krishna and she said, Krishna, the boys, they were telling me about this giant duck who tried to swallow you. It's a very, very bad thing. For from now on, there's no need for you to go anymore in the forest. You should just stay here at home. We have so many different workmen. Someone else can go and take care of the cows. We don't need you to be doing this. And Krishna rolled his eyes in his head. And he said, Mother, he said, actually all these stories about the things that I've done, really they're all lies. Don't worry about all this. And then Mother Yashoda became very ecstatic. And she laid Krishna down to rest. It's an interesting thing in Braj. Many times the boys, they return home and they tell Mother Yashoda, you can't believe what happened today. It was really an amazing thing. And they started saying this and this. And perhaps on this occasion, or other similar occasions, they would tell Mother Yashoda, it was really amazing. Huh? Krishna killed this big giant snake, Bakasura. And then, when we were returning home, flowers started falling from the sky instead of rain. We looked up, and there were all these really weird people up there. There was one guy, I swear to God, he had 4 heads. And he was riding on a swan. I don't know how a man can put on a swan, but he was a big swan. And there was another guy, he didn't have any clothes on. He had 5 heads, ashes all over his body, and he was riding on a bull. I really don't know how he was flying either. And there was another guy, he had eyes all over his body, really. The boy said, he looked so weird. And he was riding on an elephant. And they were all worshiping your Krishna. And they were saying that your Krishna is Bhagavan. He's God. Sometimes we tell this story. Mother Yashoda, when she heard that, she said, really? Isn't that sweet? My Gopal is God. That's so nice. It's not like Devaki and Vasudeva. When Krishna came before Devaki and Vasudeva, at that time, they told Krishna that actually, you're not our son, but you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you please forgive us for anything that we've done. Krishna wasn't very happy with that. It's the nature of Braj. It said that Aishvarja Priti Sankuchita. When the Lord shows His opulence, then the nature of love is it becomes shrunken. This is a very interesting and little theoretical, philosophical point for all of us. Probably you've heard about it before. But it's also something practical. Sometimes in our own movement we have senior devotees. And I've seen devotees, they'll start shaking. Oh my God, I'm so afraid of Maharaj. And then they're afraid to even come close to him. I remember my Guru Maharaj, I'm a very foolish person, but somehow I always took whatever association with him that I could. And I would, any moment I could be with him, I was there, walking with him and doing whatever that I could. And one of my godbrothers was criticizing me for it at the time. He said, you know, you should be careful, it's very dangerous. And he's correct. But then years later, he came to me again and he was crying. And he said, you know, you're very lucky that you did that. I wish I would have done that. But what keeps us from doing that? Aishvarja Priti Sankuchita. This opulence makes our love shrink. And we become afraid. Oh, I can't approach Maharaj, I can't do this or that. Not that we should approach as senior persons in a whimsical way, but we shouldn't be afraid. But in Braj, there's no such conception. Sometimes Mother Yashoda, the Brijvasis, hear that Krishna is God. And Mother Yashoda becomes very happy. Really? Isn't that sweet? My Gopal. And sometimes the cowherd boys are telling Krishna, Tumi kena bada, not tumi ama samam. He said, oh Krishna, are you greater than us? No. You're less than us, come on. And they challenge Krishna to a fight. And sometimes Sridham and the other boys, they defeat Krishna. Because they don't have that conception that Krishna is so great and awesome. Oftentimes we tell the story, if you've heard it, please excuse me, but I like this story. That one day the boys were playing at Ramanda Ghat on the bank of the Jamuna, and a few of them came running to see Mother Yashoda. At that time, Gopal was just a little boy, maybe he was 2 years old. And he said, Mata, Mata, your Gopal is eating mati, eating dirt. And Mother Yashoda became very disturbed. And she called for Gopal, Gopal, come here. Were you eating dirt? And Krishna kind of turned his head to the side and put his hand over his mouth. He said, no. Mother Yashoda said, let me see your mouth. Open your mouth. And I think you know what happened next. She got a big surprise. Krishna showed Mother Yashoda his universal form. Now that's something with great opulence. when Krishna showed his universal form to Arjuna in the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna became frightened. And he started begging apology from Krishna. Oh, I made a big mistake. I was sleeping on the same bed with you, eating off the same plate with you, thinking you're my bosom friend. This is not good. Please forgive me for my offenses. Dosha kami moadami kodami jadas. And Krishna wasn't so thrilled by that. So what happened to Mother Yashoda when that happened? She didn't understand that her boy was God. She saw that universal form and she became frightened. Because she thought, oh, a ghost. A ghost has entered into my Gopal's body. Or maybe some witch. So she wanted to call for the Brahmins to do some puja. But that day, Nanda Maharaj and Rohini, they had gone to Upananda's house, Nanda Maharaj's elder brother, and all the Brahmins went with them. And so everyone was gone, and Mother Yashoda was alone with Krishna. So the Mother Yashoda, she's a very wise person. Don't underestimate village ladies. They have their own kind of intelligence and wisdom. She knew what to do. So she went to the Goshala, and she filled up a big bucket full of gobar, cow dung. And she went back to Gopal and she started smearing it all over his body. All over his hair and his face, and his head, every inch of his body. And Krishna's standing there. You'd have to really experience this. With the gobar all over his body, and he was thinking, everywhere else, when I show my Virat Rup, they offer prayers. And then they just smear me with cow dung. This is not good. And from now on, I won't show this form. Because there's some difference in Braj. And this is the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes devotees, they intelligently point out that Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport in the second canto that as long as someone is not on the platform of pure love, the deities, Radha Madan Mohan, in their form of Krishna won't accept our worship. But rather it's Lakshmi Narayan who are accepting our worship. Prabhupada says that. However, Srila Prabhupada never told us to put a Shankha Chakra Gada Padma, the symbols of Vishnu, in the hands of the deity. Although he may not accept our worship because we're not on that platform, still we do that because Sri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Sringada Tan Mandira Marjanadu Yuktasya Bhaktams Chanayunam Jatopi. That Gurudev, he's doing that service. And we're just doing it on his behalf. And so we're doing it in the way that he wants us to do. And we have that as our goal. Even though Radha Krishna may not be accepting our worship at this time, we don't pray Sri Lakshmi Narayan Premi Sadayena Basi. We don't pray like that. We pray that Sri Radha Govinda Premi Sadayena Basi. And just as a little footnote about those prayers, there's a number of reasons why we pray that, what is it? Brindaya Tulsi Viva Kriya Kesavasi Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi. Because that's the way it's given. In all the Bengali songbooks, all the Sanskrit books, that's the way it's done. In all the Gaudiya Mats, that's the way it's done in all the other different Vaishnava societies. And there's another good reason why we do it. One, because it's our philosophy. We don't worship Narayan. And the fourth reason, because it was established by Srila Prabhupada. You may be a little surprised about that, because Prabhupada wrote a letter to Govinda Dasi, giving the mantra as Vishnu Bhakti. But then a few years later, Achyutananda Prabhu, he compiled this Vaishnava songbook. It's our official ISKCON book which Srila Prabhupada wrote a foreword to. And in that book, it says Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi in the first edition. And then later they changed that. So anyway, there's a good reason to chant Vishnu Bhakti if you like. Prabhupada said that. And there's another 3 or 4 good reasons why you chant Krishna Bhakti. That's just a little footnote. Please excuse me. I'm not making controversy. So, Bakasura. The Garga Samhita describes, it gives a very interesting description of how it is that Bakasura was such a good friend of Kamsa. We were reading yesterday from Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu, and Kamsa said that Bakasura, Paramasura, Bakasura, he's my very dear friend. Well, how did that come about? Gargamuni describes, Tundanata Gasantam Cha Bhaktam Daitya Mahabalam Kamsa Nipatayam Asa Mustina Brajagatina. He said that when it's very powerful and demoniac, many people translate it as duck. It's kind of cute to say duck. But actually, as we'll discuss in a few minutes, Baka means a crane. It's an important distinction. Right? When he came and tried to swallow him with his beak, then Kamsa Nipatayam Asa Mustina, Mustina means with his fist, Brajagatina, his fist, which is as strong as a thunderbolt, he punched him and he knocked down that bird. Utaya Daitya Balavan Sita Paksha Ganasvana Kroda Yukta Samutpatya Tikshna Kundo Grisashchatam. And then that bird got up and he made a sound like thunder. And he angrily swallowed up Kamsa. It's the nature of demons and demoniac people. See, Bakasura came to Kamsa's palace looking for a good fight. And that's what people with big muscles, it's kind of a guy thing. Ladies, you don't really understand. But men just sometimes they just like a good fight. So Bakasura was like that. He was a very, very powerful demon. And he came and he challenged Kamsa. And so they had a big fight. And he swallowed Kamsa. And Kamsa became very angry. And it says that his body became like a thunderbolt. And Bakasura had to spit him out. And then Kamsa grabbed Bakasura and threw him on the ground. And then Kamsa grabbed him with both hands, rolled him around, and began dragging Bakasura here and there. And then at that time, Bakasura's good sister, she became a little upset about that. Tat swasaram, tat swasara, swasapram, putanakyam, yodukamam avasti tam, tamaha kamsa prahasan, vakyameshinu putane. Putana, who's Bakasura's sister, older sister, she came there and she said, look, you leave my little brother alone. Fight with me. And Kamsa told her, Striya sardamaham yudham nakaromi kadachana. I don't fight with women. Bakasura shane brata tvam shame bhagani bhava. Bakasura has become like my brother, and so you should be my sister. And this is a very interesting thing I'd like to return to in a minute about the family life of the family of Bakasura and Putana. There's some description given in two different literatures that I found about Bakasura's previous birth. One of them I'm not going to discuss. Maybe I'll touch on it. I'll explain to you why I'm not so interested in it. That's described in the Brahma-Vaivarta Purana. And it's a completely different description than what our acharyas give about the conclusion of Bakasura. There it said that Bakasura was actually a devotee, and he went and he along with some friends, they were picking lotus flowers and Kailash, and it was a pond which belonged to Durga, and Lord Shiva had promised that whoever picks lotus flowers in that pond, I'm going to curse them to become a demon. And so although they were devotees, they became cursed to become demons, and one of them became Bakasura. And then it says that he later went to the spiritual world to serve Krishna. That's completely different from what Sridhar Swami says in Bhavarta Deepika commentary, and Jiva Goswami in Lagu Vaishnava Toshani, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Sarita Darshani, and 14th chapter, the 10th canto, which we'll also come to in a few more minutes. Because those places describe that Bakasura received Kaivalya Mukti. He got impersonal liberation. So then how do we reconcile this? Well, very frankly, there's some questions sometimes about Brahma-Vaivarta Purana and about Garga Samhita. Sometimes people say that Sanatana Goswami quoted Garga Samhita. That's not true. If you look in the Sanskrit, he doesn't anywhere mention Garga Samhita. We quote Garga Samhita because Bhaktivinoda Thakur liked it. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur extensively quoted it. And because it's okay, but there's some things in the mood of it, and in the mood of Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, that we don't really appreciate. And there's a lot of scholars who give some question about these two literatures, although our acharyas often quoted from some version of Brahma-Vaivarta Purana, and as we mentioned, Bhaktivinoda quoted many times from Garga Samhita. So in the first canto, chapter 6 of the Garga Samhita, there's a conversation between Bahulashva and Narad Muni. Bahulashva asked, who was this bird before, this Bakasura? And how is it that he was able to enter into Krishna's body? And so then Narad Muni began to explain to him about his previous birth. He said that Hayagriva Suto Daitya Utkalo Namahe Nripa Raneyamaran Vinirjitya Shakka Chatram Jaharaha. He said that he previously, in his previous birth, he was a demon named Utkal. And he was the son of another demon whose name was Hayagriva. And at that time, this Utkal, he attacked the demigods and he stole Indra's umbrella, Indra's parasol. And then for 100 years, this demon, he began ruling over so many different personalities. And then one day that demon was walking around, maybe he was like on a summer vacation or something, because demons like to go on vacation. And demons, when they go on vacation, what do they like to do? They like to go fishing. So this Utkal, he did like that. He went to one place and there was the bank of the Ganga was there. The Ganga was meeting the ocean. And it happened to be a rishi named Jajala Muni's ashram. And Utkal went there and he started fishing, like every good demon does in Kali Yuga. And he caught a fish on his hook. And at that time, Jajala Muni, because he has some mystic power, he could understand what was going on. He came there and he said, hey, no fishing allowed here. We were in Lithuania earlier this year, and staying with Goloka Prabhu and wonderful devotees. They have a farm, they call it Goloka Dham. And they have a beautiful lake, a Radhakund. They put Radhakund water in it. They have a nice bridge over the beautiful Govardhan Hill there. If you go to Lithuania, you should definitely visit. It's very, very nice. There's a few devotees here from Lithuania. So Vaikuntanath Prabhu told me that they put fish in the pond because the fish help keep the pond clean. They eat the nasty kind of things there. And there was one lady who came, she wanted to fish because they saw there's some very huge fish there. They said, no, you're not allowed to fish here. Then the devotees, they had to go to India or something. They were gone for a while. And while they were gone, those people came and they started doing their fishing business. So some people, they like to catch fish. And the devotees always tell them, don't do this. So Jajala Muni, he told Utkal, don't do this, you're not allowed to fish here. And Utkal just ignored him, even though he forbade him again and again. And then that Rishi, Jajala Muni, he told him, Tasmai sapam do siddho jajalir muni sattamaha bhagavatvam jasam asti tvam bhako bhava durmate. So, oh demon, you're eating fish like a baka, like a crane, and therefore you should become a crane. And then in one moment, Utkal became a bird, a crane. And he lost his pride and arrogance. And at that time, he fell down at the sage's lotus feet. And he prayed to him. Najanete tapaschandam muni mam vahir jajale sadhanam bhavatam sangam mokshadvaram param vidu. Oh sage, please save me. I didn't understand what I was doing. I was a stupid fellow. The wise persons, they say that association with great saints like yourself, Mokshadvaram Param Vidu, is a great doorway to liberation. Mitte Shato Samamani Pamani Malostayo Suke Duka Samayedvai Twadrisa Sadavaschate. Great saints like you see friends and enemies in an equal way. They see that honor and dishonor, gold and a lump of earth, happiness and unhappiness are all the same. Kim kim na jatam mahatam darshanako munendridam paramischam sasamrajam ayindra yoga padam lubet. He said, oh my dear sadhu, what can one not attain just by seeing a great saintly person? Just by seeing a great saintly person, Parameshcham, you may attain the abode of Lord Brahma, Samrajam, you may become a great king. Ayendra, you may become Indra. You may get that position just by having darshan of a great devotee. So then Jajala Muni told him, he said, okay, I give you a benediction that in Dwarpar Yuga, in Mathura, in the place known as Braj, Tadatan Mayatam Krishne, Yashyasitam Nasamshaya, Hiranyakashadoyo Daija, Vairanapi Padam Gata. He said, you'll be killed by Krishna, and you'll enter into Krishna's body. He said, even by hating Krishna, many great demons like Hiranyaksha, they've already attained the Lord. And so, by the blessing of Jajala Muni, this demon, Utkal, he became Bakasura. And by that blessing, he was able to enter into the body of the Lord. So, I have a few questions we'd like to raise at this point. Why is it that this demon had the form of a crane? What is the special purport behind that? And what is the special purport? Again and again it was mentioned that Krishna stuck in his throat, actually in his mouth, it's said. It didn't even reach his throat. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes this pastime in a few different places, and we'd like to take shelter of his words. In his Chaitanya Sikshamrita, the sixth shower, he describes, actually I have to mention a little thing. We looked this up in the Bengali. If you can, you should try to read some Bengali. I don't know Bengali, I don't know Sanskrit. I can read a little something, and I can use a dictionary. If you do that, you'll find there's so many more things in the original language, because English, as Maharaj often says, is not such a good language. German is better, I think. And I think Bengali and Sanskrit are maybe even better than German. There's so much different purport. So Bhaktivinoda, he says, Bakasura-vadha, Kutinati durta o satya hoite mitya vyavaharai Bakasura-vadha. The translation wasn't very good. What did it say? It said something like, Bakasura represents cheating, but he represents Kutinati. And those of you who know, this has a much deeper meaning. Kutinati, durta. Durta means a rascal. Satya means someone who's dishonest or deceitful. He says, Tahake nasa nakori le Sudha Krishna bhakti hoyana. He says that false dealings, we can say kutinati. Kutinati has a number of meanings. Kuti means something which is crooked. And nata means dancing or acting. So someone who's making a crooked dance or is doing something in a false way, they're acting on the platform of kutinati. So that's false dealings, that's hypocrisy, that's diplomacy. So such false dealings which are due to deceit and cheating, and which come from mitya vyavahar, another very interesting word which wasn't in the only translation I've seen for Chaitanya Sikshamrita. Mitya means a lie, and vyavahara means dealings or exchanges. It's a very significant word. Mitya vyavahara, false dealings or exchanges. Without eliminating this demon, then pure Krishna bhakti cannot appear in the heart. So he gives a few different explanations that Bakasura basically, here he says he represents four things. Kutinati, Durta, Satya, and Mitya Vyavahar. He represents Kutinati, hypocrisy, diplomacy, crookedness. He represents Durta. Durta means someone who's very cunning, very crafty. It means someone who's a fraudulent kind of rogue, cheater. And it means Satya. Satya means dishonesty, deceit, and wickedness. And it means Mitya Vyavahar. That means exchanges with other persons which are based on a lie. This is very interesting. We'll come back to this again in a minute. In Krishna Samhita, in the 4th chapter, text 22, Bhaktivinoda says, Tadatu dharma kapatya sarupa bhaka rupa drik krishnena sudabudena nihata kamsa palitaha. That Bakasura, who is maintained by Kamsa, personified cheating religion. Kamsa, Bakasura, is personified cheating religion. He was killed by purely intelligent Krishna. So he says here that Bakasura tadatu dharma kapatya, that he represents cheating religion. Again, in the 8th chapter of Krishna Samhita, Bhaktivinoda says, and we'll try to draw these together in a moment, Panchame dharma kapatyam namaparada rupakam bakarupi mahadurto vaishnavanam vidak virodika. And he gives an expanded translation in Bengali, which is an English translation of that. The most clever Bakasura, who is a personification of cheating religion, dharma kapatyam, is the 5th obstacle for Vaishnavas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as we often comment, has done a wonderful thing for all of us. He's made Krishna Katha, Krishna Leela, legal. Where we might think, I have no adhikar to hear or speak about this thing. Bhaktivinoda said, no, each of these Naimitic Leelas, the occasional pastimes in Braj, where Krishna kills the demons, they represent different obstacles on our pathway to our eternal home of Vrindavan. And these are different obstacles that will arise for each and every one of us on our journey home. The 5th of those obstacles is Bakasura-vadha, the killing of Bakasura. So he says then, Namaparada Rupakam, that Bakasura is a form of Namaparad, offenses against the holy name of the Lord, those who do not understand their qualification, but accept the instructions of a bogus guru and engage in the process of worship meant for exalted devotees are, Bhaktivinoda says, prapanchita bhadavahi, in his Bengali. Prapanchita means something false, and bhadavahi means external persons. The translator said ass-like people who are carrying some heavy load. They're cheated ass-like people who are carrying a heavy load. But those who have understood their ineligibility, yet have a goal to accumulate money and prestige, they follow the process of worship. They also follow this process meant for exalted devotees. Those persons are called kapatis, or cheaters. Until this cheating in the name of religion is destroyed, one's attachment will not awaken. Such people deceive the entire world by making a show of sectarian formalities and pseudo-renunciation. Wow. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in a few words, he summarizes false religion. It's a show of sectarian formalities and pseudo-renunciation. False renunciation. This is false religion. So, in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, it said, Paraspara anukatanam bhavanam bhagavad-vyasaha nitorati-mitas tustunirita-mita atmanaha. We cited this verse in the beginning of our talk yesterday. It said there that devotees should learn how to associate with one another by coming together and hearing Krishna Katha. This is how we associate. It said that Bhakti Stu Bhagavad Bhakta Sangena Parijayate. That Bhakti comes from association with devotees. But it doesn't mean that just going to the movies with the devotee, or going to watch the races, or going to a beach or something. It means when we sit down and we do kirtan together. It means when we have a Krishna Katha together. It doesn't just mean going, Maharaj, please, I have so many problems. Would you please listen to my problems? It doesn't just mean that we use the saintly person like a counselor. If you want a counselor, you can go to a counselor. Devotees also give very good counsel, and we have more faith in them. But that's not the purpose of the devotees. Bhaktistu Bhagavad Bhakta Sangena Parijayate. The purpose of association with devotees is to get bhakti. And association with devotees means that we come together and we hear and chant together. But Bakasura, he looks like a great crane. The word baka in Sanskrit has a few different meanings. One is it's a kind of crane. The second meaning for Baka is that a kind of hypocrite, a cheater, a rogue. And many places in Vedic literature, in Vaishnava literature, the crane is described as a kind of cunning person because he looks like he's doing meditation. He looks like he's a very great sage. We, in our 10th issue of our Krishna Katamrita magazine, we had some verses translated from the 19th chapter of Hari Bakasura-vadha, which is supposed to be part of the Brihanaradiya Purana. And there's some interesting verses there. Damba krantas charantyete sadapshara rata eva satarka sadakahete munivesha mata eva. Deceitful and hypocritical persons may exhibit a high standard of external behavior, motivated only for the fulfillment of their selfish desires. They wear the dress of saintly persons like actors upon a stage. Munivesha. Munivesha means the dress of a muni or a saintly person. Munivesha nata eva. They're just putting on a costume like that. Now, this is an interesting statement from Hari Bakasura-vadha because it also relates to Bakasura. In the 14th chapter of the 10th canto are Lord Brahma's prayers after he realized he really blew it in chapter 13 by stealing all the cows and cowherd boys. Sachinanda Maharaj gave a wonderful description of that Leela at the Govardhan retreat a few years ago. In the 35th verse, Lord Brahma tells Krishna, Sadeshariva putanapi sakulatvam eva deva pita. He said that you gave yourself, deva pita. Apita means you gave yourself. My dear Krishna, you gave yourself even to Putana. Eva Putanapi, Sakula, not just Putana, but you gave yourself to Putana's family. Why? Because Sarvesha Eva. Because Putana dressed up like a devotee. Sarvesha Eva Putanapi, Sakula Tvam Eva Deva Pita. Jiva Goswami comments on this in Laghu Vaishnava Tosham. Said Bhava Yuktanam Brajabasi Visheshanam Daktri Jananam Veshadlevi Gatim Datruchitam Tatonyam Iti Triti Yokter Iveti Tatrapi Himsa Mayadambanaya Natu Bhakti Artaha. He says that the word Eva in the verse, Sadvesha Eva, means that seems like that Putana seemed to dress up like a nurse of Datri, of Braj. He says that the word Eva indicates that actually it was a disguise. And her purpose was to kill Krishna. Maya Dambanayeva, not to Bhakti Artaha. Her purpose wasn't with Bhakti. Her purpose was to kill Krishna. And that's why she dressed up like a devotee. She didn't wear it with devotion. But in spite of that, Putana, along with her family, Sakula, her family members, he says, past and present, attained you by your mercy. Amazing. Putana attained the position of a Datri, a nurse in Braj. Although it's not directly mentioned, we can understand that indirectly, Anvaya Vyatirekabhyam, Yasyat Sarvatasarda, directly or indirectly, we can understand Vedic literature. Indirectly, that says that Putana got prema. Because you can't become a Datri, a nurse in Braj, unless you get Krishna prema. So Putana got Krishna prema. Because, Jiva Goswami says, just because she dressed like a devotee. She did that one little thing. And then he says that the members of her family, they were enemies of the Lord, but because they were obedient to Putana, and because Putana dressed up like a devotee in a disguise, her purpose was to kill Krishna. Because they were the same family, even though they hated Krishna, but they were obedient to someone who disguised himself as a devotee, they got liberation. But then Jiva Goswami adds, Baka Gayos, to Virodhi Veshan Mukti Matram Iti Geyam. But Bakasura and Aghasura, because they didn't dress like devotees, they only got Kaivalya Mukti. Very interesting thing. Some people have told me this is a big controversy right now. Should we dress like a devotee? Should we not dress like a devotee? I don't know why. Maybe we're just bored or something. We don't have anything better to do. We just want to have arguments about the most ridiculous things in the world. I really don't care how someone dresses. But this is an interesting statement in the Bhagavatam that Putana, because she dressed like a devotee, she got liberation, she got Krishna prema. Now the $64,000 question, I know all of you are wanting to ask, did she wear a sari? And it doesn't say. And I found that very interesting also. Because really, if you think about it, devotional dress may mean different things to different people. If you see the costumes that the ladies in Orissa, they do a Odissi dance, and they may do a performance of Ras Leela, they have a certain kind of costume. In South India, it's a different kind of costume. Many times the men, they dress up as ladies, and they do that Ras Leela. They have this, they paint their faces, they have the thing that comes out of their neck, they have a big dress. And if you go to Manipur, they have these really big, like cones, looks like a toilet paper tube or something, a big one, and they dance inside of that. So which one of those, really important question we should argue about, which one of those dresses is a devotional dress? I think the answer is all of them. What does it mean to have a devotional dress? It means that we dress in a way that the devotees will appreciate. And that may be different for different persons in different places. It's really not such an important thing for us to worry about. Managers can worry about that, different rules and things. But we're not so much concerned about that. So it's interesting that Bakasura and Aghasura are the two brothers of Putana. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Chaitanya Sikshamrita and in Krishna Samhita, he says that Kamsa, who is a good friend of Bakasura, represents the head of mundane religion. And we spoke about this a few years ago here. We gave a very long class about how actually Krishna is not the son of Ugrasena, but he's a son of a demon named Gobila. It's a long story. This demon raped the wife of Ugrasena, Padmavati, and the result was Kamsa came about. Gobila was very, very expert in all the Dharma Shastras. He just had one problem, he liked to rape girls, but aside from that, he was actually a very religious person. And he knew all about Varnashram Dharma and fire yajnas and how to treat Brahmins and how to twist his fingers in different ways and so many important things. And he passed all that information to his dear son, Kamsa. So Kamsa actually is a religious person. And as we mentioned also in that class, Kamsa married the two daughters of Jarasandha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktivinoda says an interesting thing in Krishna Samhita I find very inspiring. He mentions Krishna's Dwarka Leela and how the many, many different sons of Krishna, and he says in the future someone will come and they'll explain what each one of these sons means, the purport of each of these different sons. I found that very inspiring. Also, Bhaktivinoda in his article, in Notes on the Bhagavat, he says that we should not imprison the ideas of even our previous acharyas. Rather, we should reflect them and we should expand upon them. So, Bhaktivinoda, I find it interesting, he didn't make any comment about Kamsa's two wives, Asti and Prapti. I thought perhaps because it's so obvious, at least as someone who knows Bengali. Asti is a good word for all of you to learn. If you ever have to take a taxi from Kolkata to Mayapur, I don't recommend you do that, but if you want to play with your life, have something very exciting, you might go ahead and do that. Asti is a good word to learn because you want to say, slow down. Say, Asti, Asti. And the word Asti means, you could say, it's okay. And this is one of the wives of organized religion, mechanical religion. Everything's okay. You remember. I even hear sometimes in our ISKCON movement, so-and-so person left their body and they went back to Godhead. They went with their guru. How do you know? I don't know, it just sounds good. And we say like that. Because people, when they come to the temple, it'll make them happy to hear like that. And prapti means to acquire something, to get something. There's a phrase, prapti siddhi. Someone has a mystic power to be able to obtain anything they like. And so that's the second wife of mundane religion. And we hear so many people say that if you just join our religion. I remember one person, I was selling books in a parking lot in Los Angeles, and somebody came up to me and started preaching. He said, just chant this mantra, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And if you chant this mantra, you'll get anything you want. He said, I got a guitar, I got a bicycle, and I got a girlfriend. It's a really cool mantra. So there's a lot of people like that. And they advertise, sometimes they have television shows that this is the purpose of religion, is prapti. But this is mundane religion. And Baka is someone who looks like a religious person. And the Bakasura-vadha describes Dambika bahulad vesar chitai slagita janai samrambino nita nisaya krityameva nivad vijaha. That such hypocritical persons, they dress like devotees, but their real nature is they're envious of other people all the time. And although they dress like a devotee, they're always planning evil works. And he says, in spite of that, the people in general praise them. But like an elephant made out of wood, they can't accomplish anything worthwhile. My grandmother, as I was listening to a lecture he was giving, and saying that if you somehow or other were able to take a poll, every person in the world, make a vote, which is more important? Pious activities, feeding the poor people and that, or doing bhakti? He said you'll be very disappointed. Maybe out of the entire planet there might be one vote for pure bhakti. But even that one vote, he said, actually will be karma mishra bhakti, not pure bhakti. People don't appreciate pure bhakti. And so many people, they think that a religious person is someone who dresses in a certain way. There's a very nice poem we printed a few years ago by a Scottish poet named Robert Burns. I'll have to translate this into normal English for you. But it's such a nice poem, I want to share it with you. A robe of seeming truth and trust hid crafty observation, and secret hung with poisoned crust the dirk of defamation. A mask that like the Georgette showed dye varying on the pigeon, and for a mantle large and broad he wrapped him in religion. So we'll translate that. A robe of seeming truth and trust. That's pretty easy. We have many religious people in the world today. They may be Orthodox Christians, they may be Jews, they may be, we were just in Israel, we were also in Ukraine, we've seen so many people dressing in different ways, different types of robes. Our Christian devotees wear robes, the Christians wear robes, so many people wear robes. And these robes are seeming truth and trust, but they hide crafty observation. In other words, somebody, he's acting like something that he's not. And he's looking very carefully, trying to impress everyone. And secret hung. There's a secret. With poisoned crust, the dirt of defamation. So this person has a secret. He's hiding his real position. And he has a poisoned crust. What is that poisoned crust? The poisoned outside? Dirk means a knife. The knife of criticism. And that's what such a person uses. He's a bogus person. He's not really a devotee. As Bhaktivinoda says, Mithya Vyavaharayi. His dealings with the devotees are false. He's just presenting himself like a devotee, but he's not really a devotee. Let's go on. A mask, okay, that's easy. A mask that like the Georgette showed. I had to look that word up in the dictionary. Georgette, that's a Shakespearean kind of word. Georgette is an interesting word. It dates back to Shakespearean times. It refers to a kind of decoration around the neck. And it's also a kind of the feathers on a bird that when the male bird wants to get a female bird, and he goes and shows that part of his neck, and the girl birds go wild. Wow, he's got such a neck. So, a mask that, like the Georgettes showed, dye varying on the pigeon. According to different birds, that Georgette looks a little differently. He's putting on a really good show. Everybody likes it so much. It was a great class. God, such a good kirtan leader. And for a mantle, large and broad, he wrapped him in religion. He wraps himself up in religion. And he looks like a good person. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that this is an obstacle that all of us are going to have to face on our journey to our eternal home of Braj. And that's the obstacle of acting like we're something what we're not. In the Hari Bakasura-vadha goes on to describe Vistarja vaguram vyado migana kanchate yata prapancha sat kriyam evam dambika daninandanam. He said that just as a hunter spreads a net designed to capture a deer, in the same way these hypocrites capture the wealth of rich men by spreading a net of ritualistic activities. By doing some different rituals and things, because materialistic people, they're very impressed with that. Oh, something happened. My first service, my Guru Maharaj asked me to do was to come to Bhubaneswar and install the deities of Radha Gopinath. I said, Guru Maharaj, I just got initiated. I was initiated before. I used to do pujas and things. I don't know all these things. Probably said, no, you come. I want you to do. So we arranged a big, big show for 3 days. We chanted Purusha Shukta, we had so many abhisheks and so many different ceremonies. And I was in charge of working all these things. And at one point I came to my Guru Maharaj and I said, I'm just trying to understand what's happening. What it seems like to me, based on what Prabhupada says in the 10th canto, is that we're doing this as a show. To give faith to common people that something happened. Did you see? And he bent his fingers. And they chanted all these mantras, and there was a big fire. It was really awesome. Something happened. But the real thing is when Krishna's pure devotee comes, and he calls for the deity. And my Guru Maharaj liked it, said, yes, this is exactly it. So there's a marriage between rich kind of people who are sometimes a little external and persons who make a good show. And those persons who make a good show, he says that they spread a net, just like a hunter tries to capture a deer. They do all these ritualistic ceremonies so they can capture a wealthy person. And now on to the verse I wanted to get to. Hananti dasyavo tavyam vimohasyar ninamdanam pavitrar atitikshnadrai brahmesh eva bakabrataha. Mark those words. Bakabrataha. At translation, as plunderers take away the wealth of men in the forest by threatening them with sharp weapons, similarly the charlatan meditators, or false sadhus, take away the wealth of people in the villages by the sharp-pointed kusha grass used in the ritualistic ceremonies they perform. Instead of having a gun, they have kusha grass. And that's what they use to rob people. And in the verse, the word bakabrata is used. Bakabrata means literally the vow of a crane. And as we mentioned before, Bhaktivinoda, he saw that there's a meaning not just in this pastime, but also in the very name of Baka. Baka means a false sadhu. Because a crane, not a duck, but a crane is a bird that stands on one leg, like a yogi. And he stands for many hours without moving, like a yogi. And he's completely absorbed in meditation, like a yogi. But what is he meditating on? He's meditating on how to catch a fish. So, like this demon, Utkal, he became cursed to become a crane. And then he says, Prakatam patita shreyan ya ekayo tayad swayam bakabriti swayam papa patyatya param api. He says that someone commits a sin they openly fall down. He says, but those persons who act like the crane, like the baka, they make many people fall down. Many people follow them. Chanapanke staladiya patanti bhavo nanu bhaila bratiko biyam sangha sambhasanarchanai. Just as many people, if you have an army of people walking along a river, and they fall into quicksand, following along some other person, mistaking it for some dry land, and they drown and die. Similarly says that many spiritual aspirants are doomed by following such hypocrites. For they're like a cat. Once there was a cat. And the cat was terrorizing all the mice. He was the original Islamic terrorist. And all the mice, they were very disturbing. And one day the cat made a proclamation. He said, you know, I have to apologize to all of you. I've been thinking about it, and I've been very bad. And I decided to change my ways. I got this book, Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to start reading the Gita every day. And now I'm going to become a Hare Krishna devotee. And he's wearing tilak and he had neck beads. He said, now I'm a vegetarian. And all the mice were very, very happy. And all the mice came out and they were playing at the feet of the cat. And then one day the cat, he grabbed those mice. So that's known as Vaidala Bratiko, or the vow of the cat. They appear to be a saintly person just to attract the worship of mice-like people. Atman aivo pahasita mitya dhyana samadhi nirlaja vanshayanti man lokam dhamena vanchitaha. And although they make fools of themselves by pretending to perform meditation and trance, being without shame, they cheat the people of this world through hypocrisy. So Jiva Goswami also speaks about this subject in Bhakti Sandarbha, about what kind of bhajan that we should do. And he says there's two types of bhajan, sakaitava and niskaitava bhajan, or cheating bhajan, and bhajan that's not cheating. He says that there's nothing wrong with being fallen. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Bhajan Rahasya, he's given a few verses from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, which Bhaktivinoda says indicate the qualification for chanting the holy name. Very interesting verses. Jata Sharamakatasu Nyavinasara Karmasu Vedakatmakam Kaman Paritige Panishara. He said there's a certain category of person is Jatasharo Makatasu. Krishna sings the Uddhava. Their faith in my kata has awakened. Jatasharo Makatasu Nirvina Sarva Karmasu. And they stopped material life. They're not interested in it. But Vedakatmakam Kama. And they know that if I break the principles, if I do some sinful activity, I'm going to suffer. But Parittige Pinishvaraha, they can't stop it. They can't control their senses. I don't know if any of you know of anybody like that. I know a few people like that. So what should they do? And Krishna tells Uddhava, Tato bhajeta mam pritaha shradalo jadanishchayaha jusamanastatan kaman dukadarkams tagarhayan. He says that Tato bhajeta mam pritaha. First of all, keep worshipping me. Don't stop. In the Padma Purana, Vyasadeva, just after speaking about the 10 offenses of the holy name, he says, Nama parada yuktanam namanyeva harantigam avishranti prayuktani nanivata harani cha. That if you're doing Nama Parad, no problem. Just keep chanting. Don't stop chanting. And if you keep chanting, then all the offenses will go away. So Krishna says a similar thing to Uddhava. Tato bhajeta mam pritaha. Continue doing your bhajan. You can't control your senses. You're breaking your religious principles. Then tato bhajeta mam. Then you just keep worshipping me. Prita, with affection. Not just in a mechanical way. Shraddha Lord. You do it with faith, understanding there's nothing else that I can do. Maybe I can't follow all the principles. I've heard so many devotees say over the years, I can't follow all the principles. No problem. Srila Prabhupada didn't make such a big issue out of that. He didn't start the International Society for four principles. but he started a society for Krishna consciousness. And we say that sarva dharmam pratyaya mamekam shanam aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshishanam. We say that if you give up dharma, then that'll protect you from sin. We don't say the sarva papa pratyaya. Krishna doesn't say give up sin. So Krishna says to Uddhava, Shadalur, with faith, Drita Nishchayaha, with firm determination. Maybe I can't walk, but I want to learn to walk. I'm not going to give this up. Jusamanistatan kama, even while that person isn't doing their nonsense activity. They should behave like this. Dukadarkam shagaraya. And if they do like that, they should lament. They should cry and feel very, very fallen. And as we mentioned yesterday, this is bhajan anukul. This is something which is favorable for our bhajan. Dukkha chasa parada jar anorjitam tadinata. Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that we have these three friends. He doesn't say three friends, but I think like that. Dukh, unhappiness, chasa, fear, and aparada jar, the sense of having committed an offense. And that gives us humility. My Guru Maharaj, he would say that Krishna is Patipada. He's the deliverer of the fallen. But he's not Kapatyapada. He delivers the most fallen persons. So if we're fallen, it's not a bad thing. Haridas Thakur, in the beginning of Harinam Chintamani, he tells Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Amita Adama Tumi Adama Tarana Ubaye Sambanda E Patita Paramana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is who I am. Amita Adama. I'm fallen. And this is how he's proclaiming himself to everyone. And therefore, he's the Acharya of the holy name. He's not like Bakasura, who looks white, looks like a great yogi, who's putting on a big show, but hiding his real nature. Haridas Thakur, he never tried to claim that he was anything other than a Muslim. Although it's said that, what's the next verse? We got this from Srinivas Maharaj, the Mahant, the Siddha of a pool. So the verse they have for Haridas Thakur. Chaturmukha Jagat Karta, Chaturveda Parayanaha, Haridasa Kalo Jata, Brahmanam Tvam Namamyaham. I offer my obeisances to Lord Brahma. And Chaturmukha, who has 4 heads and is control of the universe. And Chaturveda Parayanaha, he knows all the 4 Vedas. Haridasa Kalo Jata, he took birth in Kali Yuga as Haridas Thakur. So Haridas Thakur, he was Lord Brahma. He installed the deities in Jagannath Puri in Satya Yuga. But ironically now he comes in Kali Yuga and they won't let him in the temple. He installed the deities. He can say, hey guys, this is wrong. Let me inside now. But he never did that. He could have told them, don't you know who I am? I'm the Namacharya. Mahaprabhu said that about me. Open the doors, let me inside. He didn't do that. He said, Amita Adama. I'm fallen. That's who I am. He never denied his position as being a Yavana Malecha. Doesn't mean that he ate meat or he did bad things. But he never denied that position. We should not be like Bakasura and pretend that we're a religious person and hide some other things. Because Krishna doesn't give mercy to such people who are making a pretense. But Krishna gives mercy very quickly to someone who's very, very fallen. Rupa Goswami, he describes in Prema Shravanadi Bhaktirapi Vayoga Vaishnavo. He says, I have no prema, I have no Shravana, Adhikar, I'm not hearing and chanting properly. Bhaktirapi, I have no bhakti, I'm not a yogi, I'm not a Vaishnava. Jnanam Vasubhakarmava, I have no knowledge, I have no pious activities. Oh, such jatir apyastyava, I don't even have a good birth. but I have one thing in my mind. Hinartadika sadaki tvai tatapya chidyamula. I know that you're that personality who gives more mercy to those persons who have fallen. Aho dine nate nahita charano nishchitam idam Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me. Aho dine nate nahita charano nishchitam idam. That Jagannath Krishna gives more mercy when people feel themselves very, very fallen and low. And he said, Hinartadika sadaki tvai. This is your nature. You give mercy more quickly to people who are fallen. Tatapya chidyamulasati. This is the hope that's in my heart. Hey gopi janavalabha, vyatayate, vyatayate. It's giving me pain. Ha ha ma deshaiva ma. Because I don't see any hope for myself. But this one hope is there. That you give mercy to those persons who are the most fallen. So this is a lesson that we can learn from Bakasura. And there's other lessons. Maybe we'll continue this tomorrow. Maybe we'll say something else, I don't know. But one important lesson at this point is that Bakasura represents what we should not do. We shouldn't try to present ourselves as great yogis, great devotees, because then we won't be able to get the mercy of the Lord. It might be very handy to get donations, to impress people, in doing different rituals and things. But we can't impress Krishna in that way. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given this explanation which we've tried to fluff out about the meaning of Bakasura-vadha. So we have 5 minutes. Any questions or comments, Prabhuji?
I was thinking, you mentioned this Tulasi prayer in the beginning of your lecture. The other devotees in other sampradaya, for example in southern India, when they worship Lord Vishnu, sometimes we have a tendency to minimize the worship of Lord Vishnu, like being like peanuts or something. I was thinking, without the chanting of the holy name, I don't know how to put it, but it's really a question of like Vishnu Prema, like the love of Godhead, but worshipping in the Vishnu form, and without the chanting of the holy name? Or can you?
Yes, I can comment on that. Because many times devotees become confused by Srila Prabhupada's statement in the 2nd canto that when we're in the mood of, when we have material desires, then Krishna doesn't accept our worship, but Lord Vishnu accepts it. But at the same time, we don't pray to Vishnu. And there's many, many statements. I'll read you a couple of little things. Prabodhananda Saraswati, one of my favorite madmen, he says, Makuru karmana gamna Vishnu bhajanam navasravanam dhuvam avapshasi param padam vrindarana yatata tatishtam. He said, don't perform pious acts. Stop it. Don't do that. Don't practice yoga. Don't worship Lord Vishnu. Don't hear about Lord Vishnu's glories. Just reside in a grove of Tulsi trees known as Vrindavan. And certainly you'll attain the spiritual world. Raghunath Das Goswami says a similar thing. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says many, many different statements of it. Raghunath Das says, Abhitakva Lakshmipati Ratamiti Vyoma Nayanyam. That you should give up even the worship of Lakshmi Devi. Now, as you nicely pointed out, that doesn't mean that we should become a little arrogant and now he's second class. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was in South India, he visited all the temples of Lord Vishnu and he danced and he cried and he worshipped the Lord, but now I'm more high class than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We shouldn't think like that. We should give all respect to Vishnu, but when we see him, we should pray to him, please, I want to see you as Krishna. I want to worship Nanda Nandan Krishna because that's what my Gurudev has told me. And I want that thing. Okay? It's a very big subject matter. This is touching a little something. You want to add anything else?
There seems to be a sequence or chronology in terms of the demons and the obstacles they present. So I'm just wondering, because Vyomasura, which was the last demon, is also presented as giving up the company of people to disguise themselves as religious people. So what is there a connection between Baka and Vyomasura?
Well, there's a connection between, I don't know if everybody could hear that. He was saying how Vyomasura represents someone who is disguising himself. If you think about the demons in Krishna Lila, we can mention Putana, we can mention Bakasura, we can mention Shankachuta, we can mention Palambasura, all of whom dress themselves as devotees. And Bakasura also, seeing he's a baka, he's a crane, he looks like a great yogi. But their fault was they're just dressing, they're acting like that. It's interesting in the pastime of Palambasura, Jiva Goswami begins that section of Gopal Champu by describing, 10th canto also describes, how the demigods were dressing up like cowherd boys to come and play with Krishna and the boys. And then later on he speaks about this demon who dresses himself up like a cowherd boy. And that's a great fault. Hello, what's the difference? The difference is in their motivation. That the demigods, they wanted to please Krishna. But we understand from the prayers of Lord Brahma that even Putana, even though she had a bad motivation, because she dressed like a devotee, Krishna accepted her like that and gave her the position of a doctor or of a nurse. So all these demons have, many of these demons have this one thing in common, that they present themselves like a devotee, but they're not. And it's something that we need to learn. Okay? So I think we should stop there. We've gone a couple of minutes over. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Premanande.